Hey everyone, I have already done a video about things you should know before moving to Alaska, and that turned out to be a really popular video. I covered things like the weather and things that you should enjoy doing, like outdoor activities if you're going to move to Alaska. But today I wanted to talk to you about some lesser known issues that I think it's important to be aware of before moving to Alaska. My name is Martha Brookbank. I'm an associate broker at Valley Market Real Estate based in Palmer, Alaska, and I help people buy and sell real estate here in the Mat-Su Valley and beyond. So the first thing I want to mention is that food security is a really big concern here in Alaska. Why is that? Well, there's really only a couple of ways that we get food distributed to our state. The biggest one is the Port of Anchorage. So there is a port about an hour away from where I live where a lot of our food comes in from the lower 48 and around the world that fills up our grocery stores. So what happens if there's a delay in a ship getting to the port, either because of weather or it needs maintenance? There's a lot of things that can come up that would delay a ship. Well, what happens is that quite quickly, the shelves in our grocery stores start to go bare. We start to run out of food because we're not getting that shipment of food sent up. In the lower 48, it's a lot easier to get food shipments sent to different states because there's the vast highway network. You have trucks coming in on the road system all the time. And there's multiple ways to get food there. So there's not just one road in and out. There's multiple avenues in most cases to get food to grocery stores in the lower 48. That's just not the case up here. We do have some food coming up the Alaskan Highway, but mostly it comes through the Port of Anchorage. We don't grow that much food locally. We do, and agriculture is a growing industry in Alaska, but our growing season is very short in the summer because our summers just aren't that long, and then it freezes overnight pretty quickly, and so we just don't have the opportunity to grow a lot of food here locally. We grow potatoes, carrots, some lettuces and greens, that sort of thing, but it's just not something that we're able to really produce in high quantities for ourselves. A lot of people in Alaska do rely heavily on hunting game like moose, elk, black bear, spruce hen, duck. We also do a lot of fishing for salmon, halibut, cod. So a lot of us do rely on a subsistence lifestyle to harvest food locally as well. So I think that's important to just get a sense of and understand about living in Alaska. And our food costs can be kind of high. Maybe not as high as Hawaii, but higher comparatively. And I have a cost of living grocery haul that I just shot a month or two ago. So check that video out. I'll link it here if you're curious about the cost of groceries in my area. The other thing I want to talk about, kind of piggybacking on this, is that transportation options are limited. If you've researched how to move up to Alaska, you've probably realized that the only way in and out is through the Alaskan Highway if you're gonna drive. There's a couple routes leading up that connect, but really one road in through Tok if you're looking to drive here. Most people, when they're going to take a trip out of state from Alaska, fly. If you're going on vacation, you want to go to the lower 48 to see family, typically you're going to have to get on a plane to fly somewhere. Usually there's at least one connection like in Seattle or Portland to go on to your final destination, although there are a few direct flights like to Dallas, Chicago, but any further than that east, you're gonna have to take at least a couple of stops to get there. So that can be costly. If that's a barrier for you, or if that's a deal breaker for you, if you're really close to family that live back east, for example, it's just something that you should be aware of and definitely consider before moving to Alaska. Another concern that I think you should be aware of if you're looking at moving here is that many people fly out of state for healthcare, whether it's because it's cheaper elsewhere or because the best of the best healthcare is just not available in Alaska for certain conditions. Some people do choose to leave the state to look for healthcare elsewhere. Now, I will say I think that's slowly changing because doctors are becoming more incentivized to take jobs up here because they tend to get paid higher wage to offset the cost of living up here. So I hope that's changing. Hopefully we won't have to fly out of state to get the best healthcare in the years to come. And just to clarify, that's not to say we don't have great healthcare professionals up here, because we do. But there are certain conditions, certain circumstances where people do choose to leave the state for healthcare. Now, you might have heard that people get paid to live here. It's true. We do have what's called the permanent fund dividend, where every citizen of Alaska gets paid a royalty from our oil industry, the taxes collected from the oil companies. However, it's really not that much to get excited about. The biggest dividend we've seen has been paired with what was called an energy rebate, which inflated the dividend and made it higher that year. But sometimes it's no bigger than just $500, which can add up if you have a family, but it's not enough to live on. The permanent fund dividend isn't enough for you to quit your job and just live in Alaska for free because the state pays you. So that's just a little misconception that I thought was worth noting. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about is what I refer to as the Alaskan Dream. A lot of people want to move to Alaska and live on 40 acres in the middle of nowhere, and they want it to be quite affordable. At least that's the expectation. That Alaskan Dream is becoming more and more rare. It just is simply harder to find bigger tracts of land here, just like anywhere else in the lower 48. We have a ton of acreage in Alaska. We are a huge state. We're the biggest state in the nation by far. So you'd think, well, why is that, Martha? Well, let me tell you. 99% of the land in this state is owned by some form of government, whether it's national government, the state of Alaska, native corporations. Only 1% of the acreage in our state is owned by private parties like you or I would own our land. There's just not that much real estate compared to the size of our state. Also, a lot of our state isn't on the road system. Much of it is rural, so even if you wanted to buy a piece of land in the middle of nowhere, it can be difficult to access it. Sometimes it's fly-in only. You have to have a plane or charter a plane. Sometimes you can only access remote property via snow machine or snowmobile. So it does get complicated, and you can't often find a loan on just a little cabin in the woods unless you go for a recreational loan, which is at least 20, maybe up to 30% down. So there are some barriers to that Alaskan dream, but Alaska is still a great place to live. All of this to say, I'm not trying to scare you off. If your dream is to move to Alaska, I would love to help you make that dream a reality. But I do think it's important to go in eyes wide open about the realities of living in our great state. So if you have any questions, I would love to help you. Just send me an email to martha@valleymarket.com and subscribe to my channel for new videos. I really am going to try, you guys, to make more videos more regularly. It's been a goal of mine since I started this channel. I haven't been able to quite pull it off to be very consistent, but I promise you I will be making more videos to come. Thanks for watching.